Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Carmel Angelo, Chief Executive Officer for the county, but currently right now my role is as clerk of the board. We're going to call the meeting to order and do a roll call. Interesting, we will do a roll call actually before we do the introduction of committee members and validation of appointment. So let me get started then. Janine Miller. Here. Jan McGordy. Here. Carmel Angelo here. Ace Barish. Here. Ross Liberty. Here. Lloyd Weir.
Here.
Mark Myrtle.
Here.
Jed Diamond.
I'm here.
Shannon Riley.
Here.
Donna Maschetti.
Muschetti, I'm here.
Donna Muschetti. And Thomas Allman.
Here.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. We also have with us Dora Briley, Janelle Rawl, and we also have our attorney, Catherine Elliott. Okay, there has been a determination of legal notice for this meeting. This is a Brown Act meeting, and it has been noticed. And now, introduction of committee members and validation of appointment. And what's really important here is the validation of appointment. So I will ask, actually, Dora, if we have validation of appointment for each committee member that has already been listed in the roll call.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Okay, well, good. So far, we're doing well. So now we get to the election of chair and vice chair of this committee. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Deputy CEO and Deputy Clerk of the Board, Janelle Rawl.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Carmel's deputy, she asked that I just come in and do this. I do this with the board and have done this with other boards and commissions. So what we'll do is, as a matter of practice, in order to set your operational parameters moving forward and who will assist in administering these meetings moving forward, is that you seek nominations for a chair. We'll start with that first. Once you have a chair selected, we'll seek nominations for a vice chair. After the nomination is presented, you do need to conduct a vote. So Dora and I will look and do the count. What she'll do is call for the vote, and you'll say all ayes, any noes. That being said, I would open up the floor for anyone to submit a nomination for chair. Don't everybody speak at once.
Very shy group here.
And just to be clear, it is the committee that nominates.
It is the committee that nominates, just to be clear, and the committee that votes.
Would it be helpful if you explained what duties a chair will assume?
I can tell you from a general standpoint, the chair of any board, commission, or committee appointed by the board is, again, they're governed by the Brown Act. So under the majority of our boards, commissions, and committees, they run under Robert's Rules of Order and Procedure. So that being said, in preparation for any of your meetings, you develop and prepare agendas for each meeting. Those agenda topics and solicit input from any of the other committee members as to what they would like to be presented in front of your entire committee for discussion, and in keeping with the Brown Act, work in coordination with your clerk that you've identified to administer that, to publish those agendas. Running the meeting, a chair typically does that in keeping with Robert's Rules of Order and Procedure. We'll keep the board on task and follow the agenda. We'll ensure Brown Act compliance and basically try to keep everybody on task. So sometimes a facilitator, keeping in point anyone who wishes to speak, setting protocol for how they wish to speak, meaning the seated members, and then also identify public expression and how you'd like to do that. Any chair is responsible for those activities and more. They work very collaboratively with the clerk in that manner. Any takers?
I nominate Jed Diamond.
I'm not somebody that would want to take that on. I'm a clinician more than a procedural person in the way you describe it. So thank you for the trust, but I think someone else could.
Pretty quick no there, Jed.
I see
Well,
Mr. Liberty down
I
there
know
with
what
his
I do
hand
well.
up. Mr. Liberty?
I'd like to nominate Tom Allman. I don't think anybody is more invested in the success of this and has got their name attached to it more than Tom. So I think Tom would be, I mean, certainly everybody's motivated. Nobody's more motivated than Mr. Allman on this topic.
Okay. There's your nomination on the floor. Are there any other nominations? So let's go ahead then and, is that none? I'm watching, I'm looking at everybody's faces. I just want to make sure.
Let's see.
I'd like to nominate Donna.
Donna,
Me and I honestly can't take it because I just don't have the time to do them with everything else. Sorry.
any others? Let's go ahead then. Could y'all show your hands up for ayes? That's in favor? So Dora, are you taking account?
I am, it's unanimous.
I did not see a hand up for Jan Laguardia. Was that an
I'm
aye?
sorry.
No.
Okay. So then noes? It'd be Jan Laguardia. Okay. So you now have a seated chair. Let's go ahead and I'll just do the nominations for vice chair. Do you mind? And then I'll turn it over to Carmel and the sheriff. So nominations for vice chair. Vice chair serves in the capacity in the absence of the chair. All other aspects that I described, the vice chair serves in. There are times during a meeting, the chair is running a meeting and sometimes doesn't have as much of a voice. There are times when they may pass the gavel. We'll need to get you a gavel. They'll pass the gavel to the vice chair to take over that meeting so that that chair can then make motions or be more involved in the dialogue. Miss Angela.
So we're nominating for vice chair.
We are
is that
nominating
right?
vice chair.
I nominate Ross Liberty.
Thank you so much, but I really don't think I should be the vice chair. I think actually it should be you.
Ooh.
I don't have time. Seriously.
That's why God made nights and weekends.
Yes,
Come on.
that's right. And my nights and weekends are taken. As you know. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yeah, and me too.
So you're saying no.
I can't.
Can I do another one? Can I nominate,
Miss Angela.
can I nominate Dr. Barish?
Hey, Dr. Barish. Are there any others? Okay, let's go ahead and show a sign of hands for ayes.
Eyes for Ace.
Any no's? We're counting yours as a yes. Sorry, you can't get out of it. Okay, so you have your seated chair and vice chair. I will turn it over to your chair, Chair Pullman.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the commission members for accepting the appointments that the voters have deemed to be a high priority for our county. Statistically, Measure B passed by the highest percentage of any county passed initiative, tax initiative this year in 2017, and the research is being done to possibly the state of California of 82.53%. And I appreciate your time dedicated to this commission to follow through with what the citizens are asking for. And the citizens are asking for the return and improvement of some basic mental health services, but I'm not saying that with any slight towards the current mental health services. We don't have what we don't have. And the citizens have asked us to work on improving what we have. So I personally and several people on this commission, including Jan, including Donna, have been, and including Dr. Barish, have been involved since December 2015, when we had our first meeting at the Fairfield Inn in a conference room. So we're over 2 years vested in trying to get to today's meeting. And the good news is it's not a commission that is going to be ignored by the public. The public wants to give us input. And we will continue to meet publicly. We'll certainly have as many transparent meetings as we can. All of our meetings will be transparent. And I've had an opportunity to meet with Ross Liberty on this, and I think that starting by getting in the next 2 months, a mission statement and talking about transparency to the public is something that we all have to understand is very important. We're talking a lot of money. In the first 5 years, we're talking over $37 million, and after that, around $1.7 million a year. And this is tax-paying dollars, not just from our citizens, but from our visitors, from the tourists, from the people who are driving through our county and spending their money here, and we're taking a certain percentage to go towards an improvement of mental health services. Many in this room have been touched by mental health situations, whether it's family member, whether it's a close friend, but we're all here for a reason. And I'd like to think that everything we've done in life dealing with mental health has prepared us for what we're doing right now in this commission. And so I certainly appreciate the opportunity to take this through the first year I think that we will, I'm hoping that we can set up some bylaws where the chair can be elected on an annual basis, because everybody deserves a chance to have their voices heard as chair and to move forward. And one of the things that's very important, and if you don't mind, Ross, I'm going to talk about your and my discussion that we had earlier this week, that after the end of 5 years, when the half-cent sales tax is decreased to 1/8 of a cent sales tax, we as a citizenry cannot allow this commission to become just another commission. We can't allow the funds to be diverted into an area where the public doesn't want it to be heard. I mean, we have a legal and moral obligation to make sure that the tax revenue that we get in is spent in ways that is going to benefit the citizens in this county and the visitors in this county who are victims or family members of mental illness. So it's something that I certainly have a selfish interest with, you know, as sheriff of the county. I'm trying to improve the mental health services so law enforcement officers can maybe take a little step away from some of the mental health services that we provide. But more importantly, as the brother of a man who committed suicide, I believe that we owe the citizens our perspective to make sure that whatever our decisions are that are going to go towards the Board of Supervisors, who will have the final authority of how money is being spent, we put our perspective in there so that all voices can be heard. And if you look at the 11 people on this commission, we come from every walk of life. There's not just mental health professionals, there's not just cops up here, there's people that are in private industry, there's people who have spent their lifetime of working with victims of mental illness. And I hope that nobody is a quiet commissioner. I hope that everybody wants to have their perspective put in. So with that being said, I certainly appreciate the election of Dr. Barish as the vice chair, because Dr. Barish sees what many people in this room, in this world, don't see. He sees the victims of mental illness coming in and emergency rooms and going through the medical procedures. That we need to listen to his perspective, and so I certainly appreciate that. You know, this very possibly could be a short meeting today. At this point, there's supposed to be lots of cheering. But there will be meetings that there will not be short meetings. There will be meetings that we really and truly disagree. And I would hope that we rarely have 11-0 votes on this board. I hope that there's a whole lot of contention and arguing and getting our point across to make sure that 50 years from now, we're not going to be seen as 11 clowns that misspent some money. I hope that people are going to see us as a commission that understood what Mendocino County needed, and that we recommended to the Board of Supervisors the right rudder for the right path to go down. So we have a meeting calendar, and I'd like to make sure everybody knows who Dora Briley is. Dora works for the Sheriff's Office, and Dora has spent about 2 months in preparing everything that we have here, making sure that our first footstep is done correctly. And so the legal notices in the newspaper, the legal notices that have been posted in front of the county here, those have all been done by Dora Briley, and I really appreciate what you've done. I know that this has been frustrating because what we're doing, this is really important for everyone to know. What we're doing is something that no other county in the state has done. No other county has passed a mental health initiative and put 11 people to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. So it's not like we have a model to go to and say, let's do it just like this, because we don't. And so Dora has been very diligent and tenacious in making sure that our first step is correct, and I certainly appreciate that. So she has put together the Oversight Committee meeting calendar that I'd like for people to look at and comment on. So it's the very last tab of your book.
There's also copies in the back of the room for anybody. And Sheriff, can I just, or Chair, I guess I call you Chair in here. Can I just say the December date falls on December 26th. That might be something you want to change to the week prior because of the holiday.
Great. Okay, so for the most part, this is the fourth Wednesday of the month. Carmel?
I would just say that November 28th is a CSAC date, so I would ask for an excused absence already on that meeting.
Jan?
I would like to concur that the 26th might not be a good date, so to have it the week prior, the 19th,
Okay.
would be better. Huh? Oh, yeah, it is. Never mind. Unless you want to not meet during December.
You know, there are some committees and advisory boards that do go dark in certain months, so you may want to go dark in December.
Is that a decision that we could make a little farther into this, depending on whether we have business?
It's up to the
that's
chair.
pressing?
To the chair.
That is, and thank you for that. So what, I mean, there's many options. We could have accepted as presented. We could say that there's no meeting in December. We could, and I elect to change the meeting in December as it goes along. One of the things that is going to be very interesting in the fall of the year, and this I'm deferring to Lloyd Weir, the county auditor on this, is when the funds are coming in and when we believe decisions have to be made. But certainly some major decisions can be made before any funds are put in and so forth. So would someone like to make a
Just
motion?
a question, in terms of decision-making and business, is there a number that this group has to have present in order to vote on things? So if somebody were absent,
Quorum.
quorum?
Yeah.
So a quorum of majority sees 6.
Okay. All right. So we could have a number of people absent on a given day and still do business if we needed to.
So is your recommendation in the form of a motion?
Well, I'm not sure a specific motion, but I would like to keep a December day open as a possibility to meet as a group, because we may have work that needs to be done, and it seems like we could do it even if 1 or 2 people were gone.
So what would be your motion? Jan?
Well, my motion would be either to meet on the day that's calendared,
Okay,
unless, did you suggest a different day?
Well, I did, but then I realized that's our board meeting, so
Ah.
that would not work.
Well, then I would make a motion that we meet as calendared unless,
okay.
as we get closer, something comes up where we decide to change it.
All right, so Jet Diamond, yeah, Carmel.
Yeah, I would actually respectfully request that we do look at a different day. That is the day, I mean, that's December 26th, and historically, there are county offices that close between for the winter holiday. So if you meet on the 26th, it's possible we would have to call Scott back in. I don't know about Dora. So really, if we could meet the week before, and I know what you're saying about the 19th as a Behavioral Health Advisory Board, I think the 26th will be a challenge.
Okay, the Behavioral Health Board, I think, starts at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't know what month or what
Short
location you're meeting in December.
I think it's Ukiah.
Carmel has made a motion that we accept the calendar as presented with the exception of December, moving it up to Wednesday, December 19th instead of the 26th.
I thought Jen made a motion that wasn't seconded.
His was to stick with the 26th, so Jed made a motion that we stick with the 26th.
But there was never a second.
Does the meeting need to occur on a Wednesday? Could we move the meeting to the week before and not set the date at this time?
Yes, you can. But you do need an active motion, so
Why does it
Jan
say
was
twice?
right. Jed did make a motion, it wasn't seconded, so we could actually do
Well, I'm
another
happy to
motion.
withdraw that motion and
And
see if we can
adjust
get
it, yeah.
a different date
There you
either that week or the previous week. It sounds like we're close. Is there a day of the previous week that
What would you like?
you all would
Go for the 19th.
suggest?
Why don't we go with the 19th? Let's go with the 19th, and the Behavioral Health Advisory Board hopefully will be done by 1 o'clock.
Is that a motion then?
Sure, I
think
would
Jed
make the
wants to
motion
make
that we meet in December on the 19th.
Okay,
So adopt the calendar with the exception that the meeting in December be the 19th rather than the 26th.
Okay, I second it.
okay, so there's a motion on the floor dealing specifically with the date that will accept the calendar that was the fourth Wednesday of the month with the exception of December 2018, and that would be on the third Wednesday of the month, 19th. And there, we have a motion and a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it was carried unanimously. We haven't talked about the date or the time for today's meeting was somewhat made arbitrary, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the location, Conference Room C, was made arbitrary just so it was a convenience to do it. However, we certainly have the ability to change the time, and it doesn't have to be done now. However, if there is someone who would like to change and we can agree upon it through motion of changing the time or changing the location, then that just needs to be brought up. Jan?
I just wanted to talk about location because we've been dealing with this with the mental health board. People that have to travel from the coast, it's really a hardship for them. We've been trying to do two-way teleconferencing. I just wondered if that'd be a possibility. If you guys still want to drive over.
As of, for this room, I don't think we have, I mean, we would always have Skype. I'm not a techie, but how do you do it with the behavioral health board for two-way through Skype?
So we have two options. We use like a Skype. We have all the setup to do it in Skype. So we have equipment in Fort Bragg and then equipment here if we're not in a location that already has teleconferencing. The HHSA buildings have teleconferencing, so we're able to teleconference from either Big Sur Conference Room 1 at Dora Street, Willits, the Atlantic Room, and then Fort Bragg has teleconferencing. So those are the different options we use for the BHAB, the Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting.
So we have,
I think that would be beneficial.
okay,
And teleconference, if you can't make it to a board meeting, would be easier for me.
so county council,
I just want to supply some information
Sure.
with regard to that. When you teleconference, you can do that with a member as long as you have a quorum present. So he can't be one of the six, for example, if there were only six. And wherever you are going to be, it has to be an open, it has to also have the Brown Act notice. So you would have to have a notice posted 72 hours in advance on whatever location. And that location has to be ADA accessible, and it has to be accessible to the public. So, for example, you can't call in from your home unless you post it and it's ADA accessible and the public can come in.
It's at the planning and building department in Fort Bragg, correct?
That works.
It's at Avila Center where mental health and social services
Okay.
is. There's a conference room there
Okay.
where we do
But he
teleconferencing.
could do either though.
He could
could
do
still
either,
do
yeah,
the-
mhm.
You
Oh,
could do
yeah.
BBS too.
Yeah.
so I don't know if we need a motion on that. I mean, we just as a board need to, as a commission need to say that attendance via telecommuting is an acceptable form of attendance as long as we comply with the law as county council talked about.
And as long as you have the availability of that room, if it's not already booked with somebody else.
Right.
So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So do we need a motion? Anybody want to make a motion, or are we just going to accept it as it is? Jan?
I'm sorry, I'm confused. How many people would be commuting from the coast? Just one? Just one? So then would it be possible for him to Skype like here?
He could Skype
Again,
into this room, sure.
I mean, you would have to have the teleconference equipment, right?
Well, no, I think
It's
that
just-
Catherine's point is the one that we need to be concerned about, which is wherever he goes, that it's publicly noticed,
Right.
which could happen.
Right.
yeah.
So
Right,
for
but
the
I
most
think-
part, I will be able to attend. There'll be some times that I may not, if the weather's detrimental or some other reasons.
Okay.
And just to, if I could, through the chair, to answer the question, as long as there's, it's not a video conference, it's a teleconference. So you can just have a phone coming in on the speaker so that he could participate.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't have to be Skypeable?
No.
That's a word. It could be through a phone conference.
Correct.
Okay. As long as we meet the criteria of public accessibility and attendance if they want. Okay, and notice. All right. All right, so we've item 5 has been taken care of. Item 6, acceptance of 2018 Measure B Citizens Oversight Committee meeting agenda submission deadline calendar.
I actually combined the two into that one document after the agenda was published. So it's the pink.
So it's what?
It's the pink dots on your calendar.
Oh, okay, got it, okay. So we didn't specifically talk about that. So the pink part of the calendar would be the submission deadline for agendas. Does anybody want to discuss that, or are you okay with that? So that's generally 2 weeks and 2 days before the meeting for agenda items to be submitted.
So obviously the submission date from the 10th should we move to the 3rd?
Correct.
In December.
December.
Makes sense.
Great, thank you. So December moved from the 10th to the 3rd. Thank you, Ross. And just a reminder, and we're going to discuss Brown Act training, but other items can be discussed at meetings. We just can't take action on unless they're properly noticed to the public and so forth. So we've approved the calendar with the agenda item submission deadline. Are we okay with the way, I'm looking at council, are we okay with the way that vote was taken? That agenda that we have agreed as a commission of the budget submission deadline calendar?
Again, this is more an agenda session,
Yeah.
so, but you had a vote in a second. Or,
All right. So
and just so that everyone's clear.
A motion to accept the agenda item submission deadline as presented with the exception of December 2018, and that would be on the 3rd of December.
So moved.
Motion second. Ross Liberty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council, I have not asked the public to comment on either of the 2 items that we have voted on.
right, which I noted. However, normally you ask for public comment on most everything. Things in terms of setting your calendar and your agenda are more your own board's
Okay.
business.
And we
You
would
can do it
certainly
either
welcome
way.
Public comment expression on anything on the calendar or agenda items. Okay, so public expression, and certainly if you want to give public expression, by all means. Is there anybody who would like to give public expression? Please state your name so we can all hear it. And
Arthur Jewell, I'm the candidate for the 5th District, by the way. So. Anyway, what I've done is I've done a lot of research. And I've been talking to Menlo College, the president of Menlo College, who referred me to the psychology department. And I think we could get an intern program set up to get some of these kids who are taking psychology to interview some of our so-called young prisoners and get some feedback. But it should be discussed by the psychiatrist. We'll set the whole thing up and ask them good questions so we can avoid a lot of mental health problems right there. Because I've seen, when I was in court, I saw a lot of kids had more mental health problems than were criminals. And I think something should be done about this. So it'll help. But I talked to him, and I'm continuing that. If I lose even, I'm going to continue that. So I bring it to the board at some point.
thank you very much, Mr. Jewell. Anybody else who would like to do public? Yes, sir.
Also a candidate for the 2nd District, and I'd just like to say
I'm sorry, can you take your name?
My name
please?
is Joel Sunil, sorry.
Okay.
I'd just like to lay it out there that I do have a small independent real estate brokerage firm that I'm a broker of, and I'd be willing to offer my services, obviously, not no charge, but very, very low, or just consulting of any sort. I'm not sure if that's something you guys are interested in, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Thank you.
Chair Almond, could I ask please, what district did he say he was running for? Did I miss
You're-
it?
Second.
Second district. Yeah.
In 2020,
In 2020, right?
in 2020.
The second district election is in 2020.
Oh, it was candidate for this, is what I meant.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, candidate for
sorry.
this, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anybody else who would like to have public impression? Joy, come on up. Joy, don't break the rules. Please state your name, Joy Kenyon, and,
Actually, Sheriff Holman, when I speak like this, I have to be Carla Kenyon.
okay.
My official first name is I'm Joy. And so I don't know if people know what point in time is, but point in time is where the whole United States counts their homeless at the same time, and tomorrow that happens in our county. And when I went to the orientation yesterday, and there's a souvenir that they ask homeless in situations, it's not when we're waking them up in their car at 5 in the morning, we don't do that to do the survey, but there's different warming stations and stuff that do surveys on the homeless, and there's a two-sided questionnaire that has all these questions. One question involves mental health. And so I asked, sorry, I don't remember his whole name of our county who puts this together for us.
Gary Colson?
Yes, thank you, Gary Colson. And I asked him today, I said, is this federally, this survey friendly? Can we get more questions on it or something? And he said, it is federally, that's where it comes from. But yes, that we could make up a couple more questions if we wanted to. And I think that would be pertinent to help us to understand our homeless community and their mental health background. We could come up maybe 4 or 5 questions on what services they've had, or what services they need, or I don't know, come up with 4 or 5 questions. Point in time used to be every 2 years, and now it's every year. So it will come again next year in January. And so I was wondering if that was something that this group would like to take on. It's just another way to get right down to the bottom of the people who might need our services on how they got into the situation they are and what maybe they could use to not be in that situation any longer. So I'm putting it out now because it's fresh in my mind, but we have an opportunity next January to be able to present a couple questions.
Do you know what the question is that they're asked that is on the survey?
Here's a copy of it right here.
It's number 17.
Can you read it?
Actually, I didn't have this in front of me when I was thinking about it. All I know is it's number 17.
Okay.
Please tell me whether any of these situations apply to you. And then it's got A, B, C, D, E. It's got a whole bunch. So let's see, it's got to be one of these. E. Do you have psychiatric or emotional conditions such as depression or schizophrenia? Point blank. I think that tells us the population out there who identifies with that, but I was thinking a few more, like what services have they used, or what services do they feel they can use, or to get that input from our homeless community.
Should
Yeah.
One thing I'm sorry, I have to say this, that this committee has a very specific charge, and it's Measure B, nothing more, and I would wonder if the comments and the questions regarding Ms. Kenyon's item wouldn't be better served to go to the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. This commission has a very specific charge. Thank
I
you.
agree.
And how to serve the mental ill.
That
Yeah.
is- it's not the
Carla,
charge.
your point was well taken. Thank you. Another public expression.
Thank you.
Don?
John Wetzler, Little River, 5th District. As far as the makeup of the commission here, I'm noticing that from Casper all the way to Wallala, all the way near to Hopland, we have no representation at all. I'm glad that Ross is here representing the 5th District, but I'm concerned that there's a huge portion of the county that's not represented. That's Mendocino, Little River, Albion, Point Arena, Wallala, Boonville, all of that. So this brings me to the fact that the Mental Health Board, which I was on for 6 years, we traveled all over, and I think it's really good for the board to travel all over to all the areas of the county, to Cobolo, to Laytonville, to Fort Bragg, and not maybe 2 or 3 times. Just show your face in those communities so they can see. I'll tell you, my experience with conferencing has not been good. I'm not in favor. I don't think you get to feel the meeting. You can't have sideboard meetings outside later. Difficult to get recognized. I'm not a big fan of telecommunications. I think that's it.
Thank you, John.
Good afternoon, Camille Schrader with Redwood Quality Management, your mental health slave. I wanted,
Say your name again,
I'm hoping,
Could you
Camille
say?
Schrader. Camille Schrader.
Thank you, Camille.
You're welcome. So, first of all, thank you for serving. Secondly, I understand there's all kinds of process things that need to occur, and definitely getting the input from the community is very, very important. I also hope this really is a working board and that we get some direction sooner rather than later around what we're doing and that we begin doing as soon as we can. Thank you. Just saying in terms of, like the mental health board, that's what they do. They talk and they process and they hear from people and we work on projects over time, but you have gathered together to help us solve a very important problem, and I think this is the best group to do that, and I'm looking forward to us having initial plans that maybe evolve over time.
Thank you. Any more public expression? So that's a good segue into the first possible action item. During the public time of working on Measure AG and working on Measure B, one of the things that I heard many times from citizens in every corner of this county, whether it's Colo or Walla or Westport or here in Ukiah, is the question, what is this tax going to do? What is it going to provide to the citizenry that is going to improve the quality of life for everybody? Whether you're mentally ill or not, what's it going to do? And in my role as sheriff, we've certainly gone through many situations where we would, and we're going to be building a new building at our correctional facility, where prior to building the building, we went through a consultant to get a needs assessment. And this is very simplistic, but a needs assessment is assessing the needs. As I said earlier, we don't know what we don't know. And one of the goals that I have personally with this commission is to work with the mental health group in this county and the citizenry to build brick and mortar, something that's going to last for at least 50 years. Something that's going to have a major impact on the quality of life for mentally ill victims and their families and communities in our county. So a needs assessment is quite often done by a third party, someone who has a company that has no connection to us whatsoever, that would come in and look at the history of where we are, of mental illness, of how many patients per night that we have at a psychiatric health facility, for example. They would do a prediction on if our population is going to grow, what are we going to need 10, 20, 25 years from now? Because what this commission is going to do is make a footprint where it better be ready to expand if our county population ever starts expanding. We've been going through a decrease now, and we all hope that there will be a time that we're expanding, increasing. So I would like to have a discussion on the needs assessment, and the needs assessment isn't free. Needs assessment does cost money. We've had needs assessments done on or not a needs assessment. We had a consultant come in when we had the former private contractor for mental health services, Ortner, come in, and the needs assessment, or the consultant basically presented a final product to the Board of Supervisors that gave the board clear direction on what their thought was of what our county needed. And I'd like to have a discussion of spending money that hasn't come in yet, but we need a roadmap to get us where we need to go. And a needs assessment is important. So there you have it. Dan.
So a year ago, we went to the Stepping Up Summit, California Summit, and that was one of the questions that's asked in the Stepping Up process, is to do an assessment of all mental health services and find out what's missing. And at one point it was suggested that Lee Kemper provide this through contract. I don't know if that ever went anywhere, but that might be a good thing to tack on and have him do the whole thing. Because you're right, we need to do a needs assessment before we talk about spending money we don't have.
So, and I agree, because I was at the same conference, and I heard that conversation, and it bounced around in my mind a lot. You know, where are we going to go? So, what this commission, remember, what we have the charge to do is make a recommendation to the board of supervisors to authorize expenditures for a needs assessment. Is anybody interested in recommending to the board that we need a needs assessment?
Question, you said there was a needs assessment done, how long ago?
2.5 years. Carmel, could you weigh in on this?
Yes, we could certainly pull that out for this committee, but I do think it was approximately 2.5 years ago. I think you're right at the time.
It might be interesting to decide whether that's still applicable, you know, whether we really need to go through the whole process all over again.
I agree. Carmel, what was that? Was that a needs assessment, or was it an assessment of our mental health current services?
It was assessment of our mental health services, and if you recall at the time, we were looking at our individual services that the county provided, and then also looking at our contractors. And so there were some decisions that were made based on the Kemper report, which actually I think you know, it really did. The board wanted to improve services, and they did. So, and Chair Almond, I'd also like to say that I did take the liberty of speaking with Mr. Kemper because I had an opportunity in front of me. He did say that his schedule is quite packed, though I think that should this committee recommend to the board that there be a needs assessment done, I would also suggest that you as chair, that there be a letter from this committee to whoever we're looking at to do the needs assessment. It's quite possible that Mr. Kemper may change his mind if it is a formal request from this committee.
Do you remember how much the county spent on the Kemper report?
No, I am going to say approximately 50,000, but we can get that information.
Okay.
We can actually try to get it now.
One of my hopes, and whoever does a needs assessment, if we have one done, is to also work with the jail. I know that Kemper didn't work specifically with the jail, but if you assume that the average population of county jails in California have 20% of their inmates that are receiving mental health services one way or the other, I think that it's imperative upon us as a commission to look at who's incarcerated at the mental health, statistical data, and say, how is this commission going to make recommendations that are going to have a positive impact on our inmates who are mentally ill? And I don't think that the Kemper assessment specifically addressed that.
And I don't think that it addressed missing things. It didn't do a whole system analysis. I think it was just the services are being offered. Yeah.
We had, not to speak out of turn, but there were some real concerns countywide and certainly within the community and with the advocates and stakeholders. And so we pulled him in really as a subject matter expert to really look at what we were doing. And specifically, he looked at our contractors. So
it sounds like, if I'm understanding in terms of a needs assessment, it seems to me there's almost three kinds or three levels of assessment. One is, what services are we providing now? Second is, what services are, in a sense, hidden, like people in the jail perhaps, that are people who are getting something but in a setting that may not be appropriate, or at the emergency room in the hospitals. So that'd be the second level. And the third then is what's missing in terms of what do we need that is not being provided. And that gets into, residential, do we need, we're You know, as you know, I work part-time for the Public Guardian's Office, and I interview for conservatorship reports on people that need residential mental health services that are now being sent out of the area. And that's certainly one of the populations that I think we're looking at to see whether, instead of the costs and all the things that go with not providing good service locally, that things could be added locally. So it seems that whatever needs assessment to be complete, we need to look at kind of those three levels, at least in my thinking.
Okay, so, and I agree. The sooner the better of getting a needs assessment. As Camille stated, our job is not to analyze what's being done in Mendocino County right now and dwell on it. Our job is to listen to voters and say, what do we need? Psychiatric health facility, residential crisis. There's many things that we are expended to do. And one of the things that is incredible for this board is, and I've been in public service for 35 years, this commission is not a pie in the sky commission of saying this is what we hope to get funded for so we can make quality of life better. We know that the tax revenue is going to come in. So this is not an academic conversation of what we're going to get. This is a realistic conversation of what do we need. And a needs assessment has to be a down and dirty, absolute, this is the basic mental health services that Mendocino County needs to move into the future. So is anybody willing to make a motion to at least have a discussion about researching the cost of a needs assessment, researching the availability of a company that would do a needs assessment?
One other question. Do you have any notion about how long a needs assessment takes?
You know, that could be part of, Chair, sorry,
Sure.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but we could, when we determine if we're going to move forward, the content of the needs assessment, we can also put out in the RFP that we want this turned around in 60 days. I mean, I would think 60 to 90 days. Based on all the information that we have already, it could be pulled into the needs assessment. That's just my opinion, and somebody else may have a different opinion. Say 90 days.
So to Janine, the Director of Mental Health, obviously whoever is going to do the needs assessment is going to be looking into what we have right now, the delivery process, the number of people and so forth. Would there be any delay in getting that information to whichever consultant is going to be doing this?
No.
And are those numbers readily available?
Of what we currently have and what we use and everything?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, the more we provide, hopefully the quicker we're going to get it and the less it's going to cost.
So not being familiar with what was already done, is that available, and what's you all that were involved, does it feel like that's still relevant or would need to be re-looked at again? What's your sense of that?
I think that we have a different model today than we had when we did the Kemper report. However, a lot of the, the facts are still the same. If we're going to talk about the population that we're dealing with and actually the needs. So it's the service delivery that would be different. That's my take, Janine.
So yeah, I would say that the service delivery is very different. I would say there is stuff in Mr. Kemper's report that's valid and that it's a good read. I think there's been a lot of change in the last 2 years since that report. We have things here we didn't have 2 years ago. We've put a lot more in place. We're serving more people than we were 2 years ago, probably 5 times the number of people when you look at where our stats have changed in 2 years. So I think that it's a good thing. I think it's a good report to read. I think it gives you some history. It gives you some things we still need to work on. But I think to remember, we're doing a lot more than we did back then.
Ross and then Donna.
It sounds like the county's been reasonably happy with the work that Kemper did, and clearly they have some limited tribal knowledge now, having done it a couple of years ago. It seems like they'd be the odds-on favorite for the vendor of choice for doing the assessment, unless unless you guys have, you know, issues with them. But if they're happy with them, I think we're staying the same horse, you know.
Donna?
I would just ask that the assessment be all-inclusive, and what I mean by that is that they would take the time to talk to those who use our services, being clients, peers, things like that, so they don't miss that critical element of how people feel they're being served and how they feel their needs are being met.
That's fair. Carmel, did the last one look into that?
You know, my recollection is that Kemper did not speak with the clients, but I could be wrong. Do you remember, Janine?
I
Okay.
don't.
I don't think he did. He did?
You did a couple of posters.
Okay, not that much. But I don't think there's a problem. I think that Donna's suggestion is a good one.
Mark?
When soliciting an RFP for a needs assessment, we need to give clear direction of what we're actually asking for. And
Right.
to me, it doesn't look like any of us know what we're really asking for. So obviously, when we put this measure in place, we had an idea of what we wanted to spend the money on. I'm not sure what that idea is. But I think that's something that we should be talking about in creating an outline with the RFP that we can all put input on. So we don't just get an assessment that Kemper comes up with, that we give direction about the assessment that we want. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think all stakeholders that are involved need to be part of that process. So if we're gonna spend $50,000 or whatever it is that we're hitting the nail on the head, and then we're getting our money's worth. That's what I have to say.
Then for next month's agenda, I'm going to have this topic on, and every commissioner certainly would have the ability to bring what they can to the table so we can develop the RFP. That while we do want to get into this quick, Camille, we don't want to get in this too quick that we miss something. And everybody here has their own niche in our community. So I agree with that, saying let's talk about this in February, and let's hopefully finalize an RFP that can go out. So maybe by April or May we could get final results. Russ?
So I don't know how this kind of stuff works. It works different at my company, but it seems like to really hammer out an RFP with 11 participants would be a arduous process. And maybe we could put together like a subcommittee or something. Can you do that?
We have an ad hoc?
Yeah, an ad hoc committee. There was obviously a lot of talent here for that kind of thing, and maybe an ad hoc committee can be put together to do that.
So I'm going to look to council on this and say, so there's a discussion of ad hoc. Come on, what points would you give this commission on developing an ad hoc that doesn't violate, of course, the Brown Act?
So just a couple of quick points before I go to that. Right now, you don't have any rules per se. What you can do is decide to follow the Board of Supervisors rules of procedure, so you have something, an umbrella to fall under at the moment, and then decide later if you want to develop your own bylaws, etc. But that way you at least have some working rules. You need to also figure out, since you are an advisory committee, how you're going to be presenting information to the Board of Supervisors. So you might want that as a next agenda item for the next month. So as far as the ad hoc, it just has to be less than a quorum. 5 or less. And usually, again, you don't have rules of procedure, but if you decided again to fall under the Board of Supervisors at this moment, which might be the simplest thing to do, and that would be an ad hoc can be formed or appointed by the chair with approval from the rest of the board.
And those 5, and thank you for that, those 5, if we went with the number 5, legally would not contact anybody else on this commission to get their opinion, because once they did that, then it would turn it into 6 or 7.
Correct.
Okay.
And an ad hoc does not have to be noticed public meeting, they can meet on the side and then return to this board and do their ad hoc report in the public.
Okay. Jan?
It's been suggested that Lee Kemper be the vendor, and so if he already has that information and already has had a contract with the county, then do we really need a request for other proposals?
Well, unless we're going to sole source, certainly the county expenditure guidelines give us very clear direction of what we can do and what we can't do. Carmel, do you want to weigh on this?
Yes, I think that Jim brings up a good point. What I would suggest is that you allow my office to take a look at this and see, along with county council. You know, first of all, we're jumping the gun. My discussion with Mr. Kemper was that he didn't have time. So I'm hoping that, as I said to you, that if he got a formal request really from the sheriff, from the committee, that he would attempt to make the time. So what we could do though in the interim is we could take a look at the work that he did already, and does that work constitute a sole source contract? So my office could do that along with county council if you'd like, and we could report back at the next meeting. Or if there's an ad hoc before that, we can report to the ad hoc.
Okay, Mark?
Don't misunderstand that I'm not talking about sending this out for bid. I'm talking about directing Kemper on exactly what we want the report to say. So that's really what I'm saying, is that it sounds like we got a report for $50,000. It really doesn't apply because it doesn't, you had some other directives or direction that you were looking to audit. In this instance, we're trying to look at the system globally to see what the recommendations are. Is that correct? Is that what the needs assessment is for? Am I
See what the recommendations of what our needs assessment is?
the mental health community or facilities, the mental health problem in general. Is that what the needs assessment is for?
You're right. It's well past, I mean, it's not location or employment. It's just what do we need right now?
What do we need? Every aspect of what mental health needs in Mendocino County.
Sure.
Is that what the needs assessment is? That's a question.
And what the missing parts are, which would be Measure B?
Well,
That's the funding source.
but I think that's what we're trying to determine now. What is that question? What is that question we want them to
We're going to
answer?
public a question in just a minute.
So, just so I can, just for example, so I can understand, I mean, if we talk to Sheriff Ullman, he has a pretty specific idea of what he needs in terms of mental health, because he's on the front line dealing with mental health patients, and he knows what's lacking. I think a lot of us who deal with mental health patients in this room, certainly Camille has a pretty probably specific idea of what our needs are. I think that most of us who deal with mental health patients can say, well, a locked facility is pretty high up there, so that we don't send people out of county, and for many different reasons. So we don't have to send people to the emergency rooms or to the jail, you know, that maybe we'd have some option. So just so that I understand what we're dealing with, because we were charged with the idea that we're going to go out and think about this. And I think what Mark's idea is a very good one, just that we make sure that we're on the same page as whatever contractor we sign up with. So I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to do, is to what's the hierarchy of needs that we have in terms of mental health facilities, and not or services as well. I mean, and I'd be interested to hear from Camille any annotation. But just a question of what you're charging us with is to go out and create this hierarchy of so that when we speak to a contractor, they understand what we're looking for. Is it right?
Right. And I think it's realistic for us to understand Measure B is not going to fund everything that we need for a perfect world. And to assume that a consultant can come in and say, we need these, you need these things, and us say, well, let's do them, then we would be the village idiot. We, as you said, there's gonna be a priority of what we need. And everybody's gonna be a stakeholder. You know, some cities are gonna say yes, some cities are gonna say no. We have to look at everything, so.
And there are two aspects. I mean, there's the building, like we were talking about when you're out campaigning all that time. There's the building itself, and then, you know, when everybody thought, well, we're going to build this smorgasbord building with all these services in it, there's a how can we staff that building when we don't have any staff? And so each thing that we come up with, each building that we come up with, we have to have some realistic notion that we can find staff for that service and what that involves. So obviously you can't come up with 6 things at once. I mean, maybe if you can afford the buildings, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know about the staff, so there are two.
Any more comments? We can go to public. Any more comments from the commission? Okay, good.
Yeah, to me, what Mark said, I think, is important to me, in that the clearer we can be about what it is we want, the more effective any consultant's going to be in trying to find out, you know, how to do that or what the specific need is. And it seems to me that we've been honing in on what the specific need is within this broad category of mental health services that speaks to a particular population that we somewhat know about. We know who's getting sent out of the county for, you know, specific needs. We've been doing that I've been doing it for 17 years, so I know who those people are. Then I've heard some additional possible needs of people that maybe are in the jail that we haven't tuned into. Some of those people are the ones that I do interviews on, who then get sent out of the county. They end up in the jail. I don't know whether there's some of them that start out in, you know, in hospital places. That might be, but I think if we could really hone in on who are this core population that we're trying to provide additional service for. And I think we got a general idea of it, and I don't know whether we hone that through an ad hoc committee to kind of really get that clear so we know who we're going to ask Kemper or whoever we did to assess the need for service to this population. But it seems to me the core is to really hone in on what that population of people we're trying to serve, so that we then know what kind of then service we're going to try to create to serve that population. If it's too broad, we end up just with a hodgepodge of, yeah, there's lots of services we could provide or would hope to provide, but I think we need to hone in on the core element of what Prop B was trying to assess, because we got a pretty good idea of who those people were, and maybe we need to hone it in clearly before we move ahead. I'm not sure how we do that, but that's my sense of what would be helpful.
All right, anything more on the commission? Russ?
Somewhat tangential to that discussion, and we were talking about a needs assessment, and you know, maybe doing an ad hoc or whatever. There's a couple of other items that you referred to. One was sort of come up with a mission statement, and then also the brick and mortar side of it. So, you know, to move this thing along quickly, we probably want to start putting those in front of a smaller group to have on the agenda for the next meeting. But maybe you want to put together ad hocs for some of those topics as well.
And we will.
I don't know how that works. I mean, is that usually how you do this stuff?
You know,
Is that how
welcome
we
to my
roll?
world. That's all I can say. Just
Okay.
welcome to my world.
So is there any more comments on this subject from the commission?
I'm sorry?
Any more comments from this on the commission on this topic from the commission? Yes, Jen.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to set an ad hoc committee to, you know, just have things moving down the road, so there's something to talk about at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm all for that. We do not want to become a typical government commission. I'll say that from the highest mountain. I've attended many of those commission meetings.
No bubbleheads.
Yes, thanks.
You know, I would like for each one of us to create our own mission for what we feel this committee should be focused on, what its purpose is. And then we bring that to next meeting and we hammer a mission statement out. If we're all collectively under the same mission, then it makes it easier to steer down the road. And then as far as bylaws are concerned, we have to have some set of bylaws. I don't know if we want to create them or if we have something so we can be governed by some aspect. And I don't know that if that's the best use of our time nailing out bylaws when we're really not moving forward, but we definitely have to have clear direction. And, you know, being a business owner, you have the choices to do many different things, but you need to focus on what you do best, and that's what we need to decide is what our focus is, and so we can move down that path. That's my opinion.
Right, thank you for that. And what I intend to do, Dora, is on next month's agenda to be able to provide everybody here a copy of the Board of Supervisor bylaws and have an action item to adopt. We're going to have to obviously change it because they have, the board is 5 and we're 11, but there's, for the most part, I think we can temporarily adopt it until we can, if we want to change, we can change, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Is there anybody else on the topic of the needs assessment that would, on the commission that would like to talk before we go to public? Yes?
What I could offer for our next meeting, if you would like, is that we could have available the Kemper report, but also do a summation of that report for this committee. I'm not certain, I would gladly work with Janine Miller on that, or Jan LaGuardia, or whoever, but we could do that if that would assist this committee in moving forward on the needs assessment.
I think it could, and it would work through Dora, so when we put our agenda out, and it could actually go out at the same time, electronically. Any other commission members want to talk on this item? Okay, open up to the public. Please state your name for the record, please.
Arthur Jewell. You know, you talk about a needs assessment. Here you have two professionals over here, Jean and Jan. They've been dealing with this for a number of years. They know exactly what's needed. So why are you going outside to get something else, you know, going? That's what I can't understand. Here you have two professionals here that have been working with it, and you know, you're a professional and you know what's going on with the jails. So 3 of you should get together. There's a need assessment right here. Why do you have to go outside? Because they know she's been working for how many years, and you're here for how many years. So they know something. So why not use them? You've got somebody right there, right in front of you, and you're going outside. Let them let them say what they know and how to put things together. Then maybe talk to, if you need something beyond that, then you bring somebody else in. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Don and then Camille.
We have to go there.
John Wetzler, hodgepodge. What we have right here is 11 members, and that's a hodgepodge. But I think that if you guys did a wish list, open air, with the public involved, and you had Jan, we did this in Willits, Carmel, I think you were there. You came to one of our meetings in Willits. And then Jan, you got up at the grease board, and we had a wish list, and we just started going. And do you remember that day? There was 15 of us, and we all said what we wanted, and then we brought it down. All of us were involved, all 15 members of our board. And with that, we zeroed in, as what we're trying to get to, we zeroed in on the things that were important to us. And then we presented it to the BOS. It took 8 of us to do it because of the time constraints, but I have that. Do you have that, do you think?
So you're talking about a response to the Kemper report?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And that became a wish list. And then we presented it. You looked at me like you don't remember that.
Well, it was a response to the Kemp report is what it was. It wasn't necessarily a wish list for the whole system as I recall.
Okay, I'll look at it. But anyway, that worked pretty well in that everybody, it was open air. Everybody got to say what they wanted, and then we worked together and we got it nailed down and brought down to things that seem to be important. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
We really have to walk over here.
You do. Sorry.
It's exercise for
Rules.
Okay. So first of all,
Administrator.
I'm sorry.
Neil Schrader.
Neil Schrader. So the Kemper report was a very good report, and I think that the template in terms of the questions that he answered for that survey are very interesting. And I think that between our mental health director and our QMC, we could give you an update on as those in those categories, how many people served, what the Medi-Cal beneficiaries were, all of that sort of thing, just to give you an updated version of the target population is pretty clear. The initiative says who we're serving those people. And then also the Kemper report did indicate, not because that was the task, but because much of the services and supports were out of county and the types of services and supports, I mean, the initiative is very clear that it's capital facilities that we're trying to fund, which means what kinds of capital facilities do we need? So there's some direction in that report, and so I like the idea, for me anyway, that Lee would be able to take it the next step and just say, from that work I did 2 years ago, from the updated information that we could gather about what, where those same things are today, what does it look like we need? I think it'd be pretty clear. So that's.
Thank you. Any other public? Carla.
Carla. Joy. I realized I didn't quite introduce myself when I first spoke, so I'd like this committee to know that I myself have worked for Mendocino County with the severe mentally ill direct care for the past 33 years. I worked 13 years on our inpatient psychiatric unit, and now I'm currently with a new program in collaboration with the Sheriff's Department, working boots on the ground again in people's homes wherever they need it. And so many times through my career, things happen, like the puff unit gets closed, and I get really sentimental about that. And I say to people, nobody asked me, and so I'm here giving a personal invitation to you. If you'd like to call me and ask me, I've seen many programs come and many programs go. I've seen some I thought were really good, some I thought, why do we even do that? But if you wish to call me, please do. I will give you my professional observation of our programs and what our needs are of our severe mentally ill clients within our community. And I'll probably give you my personal opinion too, whether you want it or not. So feel free to call me if you'd like to talk about anything that's happened in the past that worked or not worked.
What's your number?
It's on video. So.
Where's that going? If that's public, what I will give you my current cell number for work, because anyone, if you have a referral that needs me to come and see them, you're welcome to give them that my number. It's an open number, and it's 513-8004. And if you call me for someone else, I'll probably give you my personal one. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, and just as the chair and as a person who worked very hard on Measure B, I do not want us to expend unnecessary money. And to Mr. Jewell's point of why we can't do it, everybody at this table has their own perspective. And to get a professional to listen to our perspectives, to listen to the representative from the Behavioral Health Board, Jan, to listen to the mental health director, is something very, very important. And we need a little bit more than a secretary to collect our thoughts and put it in a presentable paper. So I'm certainly not advertising my hope to spend an exorbitant amount of money for a consultant. That's not it at all. I'm looking for someone to have one mission, and the mission is to collect the needs of this county and to assess them and to put it together into a presentable, easy to read format for our citizens and for us to move hastily down this road. If we don't make big decisions in about 90 days, then we need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves why we're on this board. This is going to be a fast-moving board. And we don't want to, you know, lose sight of what our mission is, and we're not the behavioral health board. And I appreciate, you know, Mark saying that. I appreciate Mark saying, let's realize what our mission is, and a mission statement of we need to realize that expenditures of money to the better treatment of, the betterment of our mental health patients and their families is what our mission is. And to augment what Dr. Miller is doing, you know, as a director of mental health. So thank you for that. Okay, yes, Carmel.
If you're ready, I just want to say that we did a contract for $50,000 with Lee Kemper. We expended just under $35,000. And basically there were 3 tasks, which were the development and implementation of a transition plan for the delivery of adult mental health services in Mendocino County, and draft the request for proposal for the formal solicitation of the third-party administrator, which of course we never did. We did a sole source with Redwood. And then the last one was assist with the implementation of recommendations included in the Kemper report, review of the ASO, the Administrative Service Organization, for the delivery of mental health services. His report was an excellent report, but it was somewhat narrow as compared to what this committee has been talking about so far. So he does have the expertise with our system to be able to walk in. I'm not certain we can do a sole source with him, and if not, we would have to do a request for proposal, and we'll check that out.
And he charged less than what he said he would charge us.
We did a contract for $50,000, and we spent $34,595.33.
Okay. And so, to the public watching this, we do have our own email address. It's measureb@mendocinocounty.org. measureb@mendocinocounty.org.
Who looks at that? Somebody looks at that, I hope, right?
Dora, the clerk, looks at that. You can even do one to test it. All right, so at this point, we're not going to take a vote on a needs assessment of the action item until we get more information. I believe that's a direction of, I haven't heard a motion. I believe that's the direction of the commission.
So what would we be coming back with for the next meeting then?
So the next meeting, what we're going to have before the meeting is when the agenda comes out, we will have a copy of the Kemper report, and we will have the, hopefully our own reason that we're here, because a needs assessment has to represent you personally of why you're here, and that's something we can talk about. We don't need a consultant to come in here and meet in a closed room and talk to us. We can publicly state why we're here and what we think we need and go down this road, but we're all here for a reason. Unless there's a motion, unless there's someone who wants to move changes. Jan?
I'd be willing to make a motion to contact Lee Kemper and see if he would do an analysis of the complete mental health system of Mendocino County with recommendations for what facilities would be the best suited for the needs.
Okay, so council has a comment?
So again, for everyone here, it's very important to look at what the mission and the purpose, you know, what you are, and you're an advisory body. So there's ways you're working with the county in that regard. And so instead of, and there are plenty of people in the county that do this kind of work. So you can decide to work with groups, whatever, but you could go and speak with Kemper and then you present this to the Board of Supervisors and they don't want to do that, or, you know, so you've got to understand sort of the role is that you're saying this is what we believe would be a good idea. Our board has voted unanimously advising the Board of Supervisors that they should go forward with this. So it's, again, just sort of understanding that role.
So if Jan reworded her motion, I'm not saying she should or could, I'm just asking a question, but if the motion was to request the Board of Supervisors do what her action item is, then that would be okay.
Yes.
I see. Sorry.
Could you tell me again what needs to be said?
Make a recommendation to the board. So what you said, but it would be a recommendation to the board from this committee.
It's a recommendation from this board to the Board of Supervisors to hire Lee Kemper to create a complete system analysis of mental health services in Mendocino County and prioritize what facilities would meet the most important needs.
Okay, let me look at the clerk. She was typing fast and feverishly there.
I'm sorry, and I lost my
Do you
train
want
of
that
thought.
to be a request for proposal, or that's not quite what you said?
No, it would be to ask him to do this.
Do it.
If we can legally do that.
And prioritize which facilities, what was the end of that?
Say it again.
Prioritize which facilities, you said.
To analyze the mental health system
Mhm.
of Mendocino County and figure out what the needs are, and then prioritize facilities that would meet our needs, because that's the purpose of our being here, is to look at facilities, correct?
Okay, thank you.
So can you read that back to her?
So what I got is a motion by Jan McGarty. The Measure B Committee will recommend to the Board of Supervisors to hire Lee Kemper to create a system analysis in Mendocino County services and prioritize which facilities that would meet our needs.
Mental health services.
So it says a systems analysis at the beginning. Is that the same as a needs assessment? Or no?
Well, until you see what the holes are in the system, then do you know what the need, I mean, that identifies the needs.
Okay. I'm just asking that. All right, so Commissioner McGordy has made a motion. You've heard us say.
I'd like
Mark?
to discuss. Basically, that to me doesn't sound like we're giving clear direction. That's my personal opinion.
Russ?
And also, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that it sounds a bit like we want to know what we have here already. It doesn't really discuss what we don't have. It seems like, well, which subtraction should get you there, but we actually don't know. I don't think it really says this is what the clients need. You know, this is what people are out there that aren't being served from what we have. I think that's the way I take that.
So the way that I see an analysis of the whole system is that, okay, so for example, you have the mental health court, and then you have probation, but do they work together, or is that a hole there where people fall through? That would be a need to, fix that process. And if they fall through, do they end back up in jail? We already have the jail edition, that would be the facility. But then you have the ER, and county mental health services for the severely mentally ill are only Medicare patients. So then there's all of the people that have private insurance or who have no insurance that aren't included in being served with a severe mental illness.
I don't hear in the question addressing the people that are outside the system. It addresses the system, but not those people that are falling outside the system. And I don't hear that in the question that you just asked of Kemper.
So how would you?
I don't know. I'm a welder. I don't know.
I mean, I figure anybody with a mental illness is part of the system, whether or not they're being served or not.
Okay.
I mean, if they're in the jail, they're part of the system even if they have private insurance or no insurance.
Jed?
I'm getting a little confused, maybe it's kind of afternoon part of the day, but and just kind of building on what has been shared from the group here. It seems to me before we employ somebody or we ask Kemper or anybody to do anything, it seems to me that we, I'm kind of building on what Mark said, to really get clear about what we want them to do. And for me at least, Carmel had earlier had talked about you could give us, who have not seen it, or the report, you could give us a summary of kind of the major findings. And then I heard maybe Janine or implied that you could add in what's changed since then, that there, you know, new services that we have that weren't there then, which you said. It seems to me that if we had that and maybe some input from the rest of the group about what we think is missing, or what you all, I mean, think is missing that we're really looking to add in, and we knew what, you know, I don't know, and I'm just meeting you all for the first time in this context, but you've got, you know, we all have a lot of expertise in this area, that's why we were appointed. So if we knew the Kemper report, we had a summary of it, we added in what has changed, and then we shared what we know about what's missing that we want to get assessed or looked at. Maybe we've got the answer. I mean, you were talking, maybe among all of us, we've got it. If we don't, it seems to me we'd be in a better position than to ask Kemper or whoever, here's what we don't quite know, here's what still need to be assessed. It seems to me that would at least help me before we would ask for a needs assessment done outside by somebody else. I'd like to get clear about where we are, what we know already, and what we all know collectively among this group here.
Okay. We're still going to need a person to organize the thoughts and needs that we see here. And so I would challenge this board for next meeting to be prepared to talk about what your needs are. You know, to let the public hear what our needs are before we ask the board to expend money. And the truth is, and I'll look to Lloyd on this, no taxes have been collected on this measure yet.
Right, you're correct. The state will start collecting the tax on April 1st.
Okay.
And businesses will collect it for the whole month of April. And then they have the whole month of May to submit the receipts to the state. And the state then has 25 days to forward the funds to the county. So we won't see our first month's worth of receipts until June 25th.
June 25th.
Yeah.
Okay, so at least we can say unless there's a second to the motion, we're not asking the board to expend any money that we haven't even collected yet. So we do have a motion on the table from Commissioner McGordy. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Public expression, we've had. Okay, so the motion is second, and Dora, will you read back the motion one more time?
Measure D Committee recommends to the Board of Supervisors to hire Lee Kemper to create a system analysis of mental health services in Mendocino County and prioritize which facilities that would meet our needs.
Okay. So all in favor say aye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. All opposed? Aye. Or nay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7. 4 to 7. Okay, so motion fails. 4 to 7. Dora, do we need to talk about who voted yes? So the ayes were, no? The ayes were Miller, Worthy, Angelo, and Barish.
And I'd just like to say I appreciate the urgency of the motion. I'm just concerned that this group isn't quite there yet. I am interested in moving this forward as quickly as possible. I agree that we need a needs assessment. I guess I'm a little concerned personally that we don't have that information already, that we went out to the taxpayers and we're collecting this money without clear ideas of what we need. So I absolutely agree that we need this as soon as possible, but I think we need more direction from this committee.
I agree with that, and one of the hardships that we discussed of putting together an agenda for the very first meeting of the Measure B Commission is trying to direct a commission without having a chair or without having history of what the commission has done in the past. So we've accomplished our first task of having a meeting today, and now we can have our second meeting, hopefully in February, with the information that we need to move forward, just like you were saying. All right, so with the Board of Supervisors, there's certainly an opportunity for each board member to report out on meetings they've gone to and things they've done representing themselves as members of the Board of Supervisors. And it will be on future agendas for commissioners to report out on what they've done and so forth. However, as I said earlier, I hope there's no silent commissioners here. I hope that we are going to have very strongly worded meetings where we can leave understanding that we're doing the right thing. Is there anything more to be brought before this commission for the betterment? Council.
So because you are a Brown Act commission, you are mandated to do the 2 hours of ethics. And you can do that online, and it can be Ethics Brown Act as part of the ethics. I don't know if they were given to you, I brought some flyers. I am doing a Brown Act ethics training tomorrow, so you would get your 2 hours if you join us in the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. We're doing one in Willits on the 21st at 6 o'clock, and trying to get a place on the coast in March. But again, you're mandated to do 2 hours within your first year, and then 2 hours every 2 years.
So what time is it tomorrow?
9 to 11.
9 to 11 tomorrow in the Board of Supervisors?
Correct.
It is in your binder under the tab trainings, the flyers there.
Brown Act.
And there's flyers in the back of the room.
I just wanted to see if before next time, could we get what you had said you could, which is the report, a summary, and the update?
I can send that, if it's okay with the chair, I could send it to Dora, and Dora could send out what we have.
Right, and it'll be put on the public website of, when people want to know what our agenda is, Dora, how is that going to be accessible to the public?
CountyofMendocino.org. It's under the community page, and it is entitled the same thing that's on the front of your binder, the Mendocino County.
MendocinoCounty.org.
Yes, under the community page. And then Mental Health Treatment Act Citizens Oversight Committee has a page there.
Okay, and the minutes will be available there ultimately.
Yes. The minutes are there, the minutes will be posted there when they're finalized.
Okay, after they're approved by the board. So when you get your minutes, please read them to make sure you're not misquoted. Carl.
Yeah, just one more comment I'd like to make. I think that we could look at the ordinance and you know, I would recommend that we all read the ordinance because it really does speak to what this oversight committee is supposed to do. And I request that we're very cautious with what we are supposed to do. It is now in the ordinance what the charge is. And my concern is that we don't move into the activities of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. So, you know, we have a specific charge. I hope that as a committee that we follow this very specific charge. And I think today that we did. I just think that it'll be very easy, certainly for members of the public, to come here to go to Behavioral Health Advisory Board. I hope that you know, when appropriate, we could steer people back to the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and keep with this very, very specific charge that this commission has.
And if I could hang on what Mark spoke earlier about mission statement, you know, I challenge everybody to almost come up with their own mission statement, but do so only after reading the ordinance, because you're right, we have a mission to do, and it's very separate from NAMI, it's very separate from Department of Mental Health, very separate from behavioral health.
And you each have the ordinance in your binder, it's under that other tab.
I'm wondering, just building on what you just said, Carmel, if we all, if we haven't read it, I've read it numerous times, I need to read it again. We read it, and I would like to see then each of us write our own statement about, having read it, here's how we interpret that, or here's how we see it, such that then maybe we could have it sent to all of us, so by next meeting we could, have read it and heard what all our 11 commissioners, their view is, because I'd like to hear from all of you.
County council.
Can't do that?
Serial meeting. It's a violation of Brown Act.
So that's why I'm inviting you to the
Yeah,
Brown
well,
Act training. So very, very briefly, if 6 of you or more are sharing information not in a public forum, you are having a meeting that is not a noticed open public meeting. So you have violated the Brown Act.
Gotcha.
It's frustrating, I understand.
I need to learn. So would it be appropriate, though, if by next meeting we each read it, wrote out our own thing that we could then share at the public meeting?
Sure, bring it.
That's kind of what you were getting at, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. That I think would be helpful.
Council, is there anything more for this commission to do today that we haven't done? Dora, is there anything I forgot? Okay.
I think
Yes.
we also asked the clerk to provide a copy of the board's bylaws, so we can take that up next meeting and decide.
Right, and so that'll be with the agenda. If the CEO's office can get it to Dora, then we can put that on the agenda, change it. So our next meeting is the last day of February 28th at 1 p.m. in this room right here. Please leave your very expensive name tags here, and we will save those and bring them out. And thank you all very much, and thank the public. Meeting adjourned.
Dora, do we take these with us or leave them?